Hey, this is Paige, and according to the very cheap watch that I have, or actually it's cheap little clock radio in this hotel room that I'm in, allegedly this thing starts in about a minute. So I'm going to give it about another 30 seconds, we'll get rolling. And hopefully there are things in this that you could walk away from and sell, you know, in a perfect world, in a wonderful world, in a world of rainbow lollipops, sunshine, everything. There would be 5 things that you could take home, or if you're already home, take to work. If you're already at work, then you really need a life, and sell and turn around 5 things. That would be your goal. And let's see if we can, you know, get that started. Let's check the clock radio. Okay, it's 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. Welcome to the webinar. I kind of, you know, envision when I say welcome to the webinar, a screeching Axl Rose kind of introduction. If you could do that in your head, it will really help me move along. There is an app or opportunity to chat with me during this. I have the attention span of a golden retriever on a good day. So if there's any questions that you have during the webinar, shoot me an email afterwards, and I will absolutely, you know, try to flesh out the ideas or respond to your questions on how these stations pulled these things off. And it'll just be easier for everybody all around. My name is Paige Nienaber, and I consult radio stations on marketing and promotions. And I got into promotions when I was 20 years old. Promotions used to be a penal colony. I said penal. It used to be a place where they sent you for transgressions against the regime. It was a gulag. If you're from Australia and you can trace your ancestry back to the earliest settlers, well, they were probably a crook, because Australia was a penal colony. That's where they would send the people from Britain for who had caused trouble. And like, you know, any good penal colony, you survived in promotions by stealing food that you got at remotes and just scavenging, much like the early Australians. So my transgression against the regime when I was 20 years old was that I was the board op of the American Country Countdown on KYTE AM in Portland, Oregon. And maybe it was because it was 6 a.m. I think that was partially that. And also that I just wasn't that bright. But I had a ongoing problem of running the vinyl out of sequence. So I might start, you know, with song number 10 accidentally. Now my theory was that, seriously, who's listening? Well, I'll tell you, Rockwell, as delusional and paranoid as he was correct. Somebody was always listening. And it seemed to really bug them to find out that John Anderson's Swinging, coming in at number 9, finding that out an hour and a half earlier than they would have eventually found that out, bugged them. They called the program director, boom, I went off to Australia or promotions. Consulting radio stations on promotions in 2022, promotions covers everything. It's morning shows, it's sales, it's certainly programming, marketing, contesting, power maintenance, probably adding lawn care at some point. A lot of what I do is I fill holes, or I help stations to fill holes or dents or cavities. I'm a promotional dentist, but without all the cool equipment. You always have to have something to talk about, okay? I refer to it as like the dominoes theories of promotion. One thing ends, and then you're into the next thing, and then you're into the next thing, and then you're into the next thing. And if you remove one domino from that equation, everything goes off the rails. It stops. You have to have something to talk about, and that's a lot of what I do. Now I'm going to try to. Well, for some reason this, there we go. Hey! Sometimes you have to click up, sometimes you have to click down, sometimes you have to click sideways. This was a down. This is the December 2022 calendar. Radio, you'll see trends. And there's trends in radio that happen every year. They're like the tides. One of the trends we see is that coming out of Halloween, there is a giant black hole of nothingness for about a week to 2 weeks. This is for US radio before Thanksgiving kicks in. So my self-inflicted job description has always been to give stuff to sales and give the DJ stuff to talk about. If you look at the 102 Jams death spiral, in Orlando, when the #1 station in the market basically went out of the format in about 18 months. One of the factors, I'm not going to get into the programming aspect, that's not my forte, but one of the elements that occurred was they didn't have anything to talk about. I mean, they didn't reference Mother's Day. And Mother's Day is kind of, kind of a universal holiday, unless you're a spore or an alien. Now, even aliens would have mothers. So to miss Mother's Day would be kind of egregious. So, and it doesn't have to be contesting, okay? We're kind of the bad self-esteem medium. Maybe we're talking about something that, the Greek system over at the university is doing a charity-thon. Good, let's talk about that. One of the town square stations prior to prom, the night guy went and did a video about what occurs when you get a DWI. And he worked with the local police. Basically, they staged him getting arrested and going through the booking. And what happens when you think about DWIs, it's more than just going to jail. It's going to cost you a tremendous amount of money. It was a great video, a great public service. That would be something you could, in fact, talk about. So looking at December, I've always looked at Christmas as kind of being like a Chinese menu. Basically, you need to get to Christmas. And what happens at a lot of radio, and that sounds really elementary, but it's true, because at a lot of radio stations, Christmas ends when the morning show goes on vacation, which usually will be around like the 16th. And then there's nothing to talk about up until Christmas. You got to have something, you have to find an excuse to reference Christmas. One of the stations did the "oh shit, it's almost Christmas week," and basically they just blew out stocking stuffers. One of the stations in Canada did a Santa World Tour, and the night of the 24th into the 25th, every hour they had check-ins from Santa as he circled the globe. Elf on the Shelf, cool. Maybe the week before Christmas you do some kind of gallery with that. I always look at social media as, if everybody's doing something on social media, they should perhaps be doing it and sharing it with us. Elf on a Shelf could be something like that. Basically, with this webinar today, I'm going to break it into two parts. The first part is going to be the 5 weeks from, say, December 26th up until February 1st. And then after February 1st, all the Hallmark holidays kick in. The week after Christmas is usually kind of a big gaping hole for radio. And that's because people are on vacation. This would be the time to start referencing New Year's Eve if you haven't done that already. New Year's Eve is kind of a one-dimensional thing for radio. We either are at a club or we're at some kind of event. Think of it as like a pie chart. There's more to it. It can be a date night. So maybe what you do is you give away reservations at restaurants. You don't have to necessarily pay for the food. That would be great if you did, but at least helping people who procrastinated to the last minute to save a table. Listening to New Year's Eve, in theory, this should be a great night for radio listenership. And it's kind of become a throwaway night. The first New Year's Eve that I worked this job, I was still living in San Francisco, and using listen lines, some of you may remember that, I listened to New Year's Eve come in at stations around the country. And some of them kind of sounded like just bad club nights. It just happened to be on New Year's Eve. The best I heard was done by Rick Gillette at HYT in Detroit. And what they did was, with the engineer, they went down to the venue where they were hosting their event, and they mic'd that. They mic'd it like they were miking, a Grammys broadcast or something like that. When you listened to it, it sounded like you were in the middle of the dance floor. It sounded amazing. That should be your goal. Okay, everybody's going to do countdowns. Countdowns are great. But since all countdowns sound the same, maybe you need to find a way to do it differently. The real vibe for New Year's Eve is house parties. So maybe that is what your goal is, going out and hitting house parties. One of the things that we've discovered in the last 40 years is that pizza is exceptionally easy to get. So do Invasion of the Party Crashers. We did it in San Francisco. Go out and map it out so that no parties are more than about 20 minutes away from each other. Pizza is a universal. It's kind of like T-shirt stores in Orlando, or made in Manhattan at midnight on DirecTV. Pizza is the universal. It's easy to get. Go out and deliver it. Again, we made it so we were never more than 15 or 20 minutes from one party to the other. We sounded like we were everywhere. And of course, there was an event that we were also hosting, so we could then go from whatever party we were at back to the event, and they'd check back 15, 20 minutes later. Here we're at another party. Last baby, first baby. WPGC used to do that. Celebrate the last baby of the year, celebrate the first baby of the new year. Again, I move really quickly. If you have any questions with any of these things, let me know. 2022 has not been a great year. What if you brought in a Native American shaman and you cleansed the air at midnight on the 22nd? They actually did that with one of Rick Thomas's stations. And encourage your listener to go out and buy sage and burn it at the same time. Jay Philpott, who's with Love 105 in the Twin Cities, a very cool station, did something back in the day where he edited together the hooks of the #1 songs of that year, 7 or 8 or 9 songs, wherever they were. He'd already had about 10 years of #1s, and every year they would add on the current or past years #1s, and they would play it at midnight. The contest being that you had to write down the artist and title of all of these #1s going back over about 15 years. It was a great contest. This is back when people used to mail letters. It would be a lot easier to do it now with a form perhaps on the site, but why wouldn't you want people listening at midnight and writing down songs? The morning after, January 1st, some of the people will still be up. So I've seen stations that have done morning after breakfasts with Bloody Marys. It's for the people who have not yet quite gone home. Hangover survival kits, another promotion that I've seen stations do. Look at that. You have to do this kind of manually. I've not done that before. Now the nuke for New Year's Eve is New Year's Eve. Las Vegas, I think, kind of stumbled into something when they realized that Las Vegas had just become a playground for adults. What if we opened up to families? Now, I know for a lot of the Las Vegas purists, this was an affront to God, but New Year's Eve is traditionally just an adult playground. So if you, as a radio station, were able to do something that opened it up to the families, that would be amazing, because nobody else is throwing anything at them. New Year's Eve or New Year's Eve is a promotion where you do a party for families. KSFM in Sacramento did it at Chuck E. Cheese. And basically, starting at 10 a.m., it's a party for families. There's games, there's contests, there's food, there's face painting, and a big dramatic countdown to 12 noon. The families can celebrate together with their kids, and then they go stick the kids with the grandparents and go out and drink grain alcohol till they're unconscious. We're looking at January. January, and by the way, 3 people will get this. January, the first 3 months of the year are a giant hole, okay? A big giant hole. And this is not a surprise. This is not like an earthquake. This happens every year, and yet every year we are surprised by it. You need to have hole fillers. A hole filler in the first few weeks of January could be movie tickets. I've seen stations that have hooked up with the ad agency that places screenings in the market and done movies for a year. A fantastic prize. To win a ticket to every screening that is done in the market for the entire year, cost to the radio station is $0. It's done through the agency, and all they really do is stick your winners' names on the list, okay? Movies are the entertainment universal. If you went out and talked to 10,000 people, and if you do, you should wear a mask. If you went out and talked to 10,000 people, they will almost all universally agree that they enjoy movies. Now, they're going to disagree about what kinds of movies they enjoy, but they do enjoy movies. So knowing that, this is a great prize. This is something that you could be looking towards for January, where again, we know there is going to be nothing. Radio is not about nothing. Radio is about something. We have to find something. And our goal, again, is to get us to February 1st. This is not going to be a popular opinion. Group contests are not the best hole filler. I've seen stations that have turned these things into actually listenable, engageable things. That's kind of few and far between, okay? I would suggest that you need something in addition to your group contest. Because for many stations, it is just wallpaper. Live in Portland actually was a non-wallpaper station. Last year, they did Squid Game as the theme for their group contest. Squid Game was a thing at that time. It was a trend. It was something that people were referencing and talking about. Great, that was the theme. And what you did was you won 1.8 million won. If you can make it talk worthy, then it's a hole filler. I use WDJX in Louisville, where they did win $1,000 in ceramic cats, or the cash equivalent. Again, it doesn't have to be cash. We've dumbed down win $1,000 to the point that it doesn't really mean very much. So they got on the air and said, we're going to give away $1,000 in ceramic cats, or the cash equivalent. The imaging was done by a woman named Laura Daniels, who was a retiree named Eustace Ungerman. She did all the imaging, and she had a little bit of a lisp. I think the lisp is what really put it over the top. It wasn't the voice guy. It was a resident of a retirement home talking about how she had to win these ceramic cats. Anytime you can add a character to your contest, it immediately differentiates itself from all the other contests, which everybody else is doing, and they all sound the same. Adding a character. At Jams in Orlando, the character were the Berglunds. If you lived in Orlando, you knew who these people were. They were pale, morbidly obese people from Minnesota. They were a family. Don and Dorothy and Tim and Debbie, and they drove an RV, and they drove it extremely slowly, and they were confounded by roundabouts and toll plazas. If you live in Orlando, you knew these people, and they would haul the Berglunds out 3 or 4 times a year. And when you heard the Berglunds, you knew that it was something special. It was going to be something unique, something that you didn't want to miss. The Berglunds won an Addy in the state of Florida. How often do radio promos win Addies? The Berglunds did. So adding a character could be a way to make this more of a hole filler. Brackets. We are great as an industry at rediscovering promotions. Brackets we discovered with COVID could be more than just for March. I will tell you that the Beasley stations have weaponized brackets and galleries over the last couple of years. And when I say weaponized, I mean weaponized in terms of making a lot of money off it. That's a good weapon. So, and you really, you don't have to go any further than social media. Brackets and galleries reflect what's going on social media. Social media is about kids, pets, and food. If I got on my Facebook page and started talking about El Loro as being the best Mexican restaurant in the Twin Cities, there would be people who would agree with me, and there would be people who would disagree with me. Rob and Joss at KYXY in San Diego were back to school last year, did a school lunch bracket. These were all meals that you would have enjoyed if you were a member of that demo, 42-year-old women, and lived in the market during this time. Sponsored by a grocery store. 5 random voters were picked for $100 gift cards to a grocery store, which is a great prize. And it was great. They just did for back to school this year. They did back to school fashions sponsored by a shopping mall. Brackets are great promotions. Local will always win. Entercom in Chattanooga tapped into something. They did the best Mexican food in Chattanooga. Apparently Mexican food is a big deal in Chattanooga because it blew up. 16 Mexican restaurants. The winning Mexican restaurant got an ad schedule from the radio station. Random voters got gift cards to the winning restaurants. Voice an opinion and watch what they do. That's what social media is. Entercom in St. Louis did it as food fights. It was a different genre of local restaurant every week for a month. WROR in Boston did it as first cars, 64 first cars. And People who randomly were picked who voted got car maintenance. 97 Rock in Buffalo did jacket brackets. Y94 in Fargo right now is doing candy brackets, looking for the best Halloween candy that you enjoyed as a kid. Again, sponsored, random people get cash or gift cards or whatever the sponsor was. Sides Giving, we're looking at Thanksgiving coming up. It's been done as Sides Giving at KYXY in San Diego. 16 sides, like macaroni and cheese, stuffing, dressing, whatever it is, voted down to number one. It's just an opportunity to voice an opinion, random people getting grocery store gift cards. I love this. Baby Idol was really the first of the gallery promotions. I have to, preface this. Some audiences will not submit anything, no matter how much you beg and plead. Okay, that's when you go and you do a bracket. The bracket, you pick the items. All they have to do is vote. Some stations can get people to submit stuff. You work with what you got. What do you got in the Twin Cities? You got snow. So KS95 did something, I think they called it Catch a Drift or Catch Our Drift. And basically you decorated the snow drift at the end of the driveway. The prize was very Minnesotan. It was a giant inflatable swan, like so that you would have at your lake and the kids could climb on and jump off. They got fantastic entries. So galleries, will work for some stations. Baby Idol was the first. G105 in Raleigh did Big Hair for Bon Jovi. They got 800 entries of women boasting or showing off their big ass hair from 1988. It was absolutely amazing. One of the CHRs with gallery promotions, they did about 6 a year, and they did a great pitch count. They didn't, they'd do something for kids, and it was always stuff that was kind of a universal. They did Frozen Fiancés. For that market, it was perfect. A photo of you and your fiance in your swimsuits frolicking in the snow. They had 14 clients on it. And the winning couple, I think the package was something like $9,000 in services and stuff. So local will always work. What happened, though, was that, as so often happens, sales stumbled on the fact that they could make a tremendous amount of money off this. And so instead of inviting clients to be part of a universal for the market like snow or lake cabins or something like that, they started creating gallery contests for them. So they had Swiffer brooms, and they did something called Messy Munchkins. Submit a photo of a mess that your kid made. They got, I think, 2 entries. Create the theme, invite them to be part of it. We're going into the winter. You can do snow angels. You could do powdered pets. Now that's a Minnesota thing. The first snow of the year, you take a photo of your dog playing in the snow. What client is not going to probably want to get involved with a pet promotion? Here we go. I've never had to manually do this. We're again looking at January. If you are a top 40 radio station, this is the time to do a school spirit contest. This is something that's done by HOT in DC. It's a school spirit showdown. You want to do January because the kids are coming out of Christmas vacation, Christmas break. They have some energy. You can engage them and get them to participate. Team of the week. They did that in Detroit. They identified 35 schools that were really important to the station, or their zip codes, or their suburbs, or their wherever they were. And as opposed to, this is driving me nuts, as opposed to just focusing on high school football, they opened it up to all the sports. So they were able to continue this through the school year. So maybe Romulus does not have the best high school football team in the Detroit greater metro area. But guess what? The girls track team is amazing. So the girls track team would come in on Thursday night, sponsored by Hungry Howie's. They always went home with a trophy. You can get tons of ears when you do this if you let the students know ahead of time that their student or their team is going to be on the air. When they launched AMP in Boston, they did the 5,000 songs and no commercials. Well, the first program director came in about 90 days into it and emailed me and said, nobody knows that this station exists. And I think my reply was something like, you think? So they desperately needed DJs. So every night they would have a different high school cheerleading squad be the night show. They weren't guests, they were the night show. And Dan did a fantastic job of cherry picking important parts of the market that they really needed to exploit, and they needed to get some ears. They let the cheerleaders market it within the school with banners and morning announcements, and they got ears, and damn it, if they didn't get some meters, okay? It works. It worked in 1973, it works now. January would be a great place to stick a school spirit contest. Principal for a Day was first done by Now FM in Indianapolis with Rain. They did it with Bieber, and this was when Bieber was just hitting. And they got, I believe, 1.3 million votes to get Justin Bieber to be their principal for the day. And he came in, and he just visited classrooms and did stuff like that. I believe he may have helped serve lunch in the cafeteria. Principal for the Day is great. And there's one other thing, and we did it at KDWB, and we also did it at Power in Atlanta, which is the high school press conference. You are going to find yourself in situations where you have an artist and you don't know what to do with them, okay? With KDWB, I believe it was J.C. Chasez. And what were they going to do with him? So they reached out to all 132 high school newspapers in the market and said, this is the first RSVP come invite, but they were given a phone number to call. And when they called the phone number, they had 2 hours to get to a secret location. This was a high school reporter and a high school newspaper photographer, and they had a press conference, and you could interview J.C. Chasez. Power in Atlanta did an invite only with high school newspapers, and they did it via a Zoom kind of digital platform. I thought the in-person thing was better, but it doesn't matter. Anytime you can get your station referenced in a bunch of high school newspapers, it doesn't cost you anything, and it's just great marketing. What else comes up in January? Fitness. This is the time of year. We're coming out of a season of indulgence. Great hole fillers, obviously gym memberships, but it's got to be more creative than entering an email. One of the things that we saw during COVID was that people didn't want to give up their fitness regime, or whatever the hell you pronounce it. So they were doing fitness via Zoom and via other forms of teleconferencing. Doing things with gym memberships is great. They're great prizes. We used to do a thing in San Francisco it was an AIDS fitness-thon. It was basically a 24-hour workout or Zumba type class, and you took pledges. You could do this with any kind of charity. And once you can, and I've got a friend who is involved in Zumba, it is easy to activate these people. They're all on social media. Send the invites out to the groups. They will show up. And these are fun, active people who will participate, especially if there is a charity kind of angle to it. You could do a fitness fest. Saw that done in Minneapolis, and did it at a shopping mall. At the end of the day, what doesn't somehow tie back to fitness? It can be food, it can be clothes, it can be shoes, it can be gyms. Something else you could do with fitness is take a DJ as the crash test dummy and do kind of an endorsement. Now we've all done that, okay? Nobody really cares at the end of the day that an overprivileged, in their opinion, overpaid individual is getting a free membership. If you tied it in with a DJ and a listener and tracked their progress, that might be better. Taking listeners and turning them into the spokespeople for these kind of endorsements are always great. Having them with a DJ doing it. There was a version of this in Houston at a station where Toyota wanted to give each of the DJs a car to give away, or a car to drive and talk about. And the program director basically said, Who cares? Nobody cares. So that this DJ gets to drive a car for free. If anything, it's going to piss me off. So they found 5 listeners and they made them the mommy bloggers. 5 women from different circumstances in their life, single moms, hockey moms, soccer, whatever. And they each had a car and they drove it, and they authoritatively, from their experience, blogged about how having this Toyota improved or streamlined, their work day or their life day. It was done by the NBC affiliate up in the Twin Cities. It was fantastic. We have to think outside of the standard endorsements. Going back to fitness, cooking lessons. This is a time of year in January where we're changing our habits. So working with a grocery store or a restaurant, maybe you do online or social media cooking classes. Corey Dillon did that, I think, almost all the way through COVID, and continues to do that. This is the time where people are going to be changing. Let's help them. Again, these kind of classes were things that we discovered during COVID. For one of the stations, they had a gym membership. Again, as exciting as entering your email to win a gym membership, perhaps there could be more. What they did was the morning show tracked their caloric intake from November 30th to December 31st. They tracked everything that they ate, the total caloric intake, and they just made up some number like 2.4 million calories. They did a high-low contest for it. Person who guessed the total caloric intake won gym membership. There's a thing called the greed diet. This is, I'll be honest, this would be very difficult for a lot of stations to pull off. They did it at KZIA in Cedar Rapids. They made a tremendous amount of money. Let's go back again. Listen to this. Tremendous amount of money. They had 700 teams at $100 a team. I'll let you matriculate on that for a second. And then think about all the different clients that you could get involved with this. Again, what doesn't tie into weight loss? The contest was the team that lost the most percentage of weight, not poundage, but percentage of weight over a 30-day period, split $30,000. And this was all money backed out of sales and entry fees. It's work. You have to have a weekly weigh-in, but it is work, but it was an extremely lucrative amount of work. And then you get the Valentine's. Congratulations, you made it halfway, the halfway point. I should plug the fact that I am available on cash and barter here in the US, consult stations on marketing promotions. And I should also plug my YouTube channel. If you're enjoying this video, please hit subscribe below to my YouTube channel, Amateur Home Pet Dentistry. Remember that November's theme is back teen, man's other best friend. So thank you again for subscribing. Valentine's this year is 2 days before the Super Bowl. I would, and my favorite Michael Martin line was one of his stations missed Valentine's. And Michael said, I could see that. I mean, they change the date every year. One year is the 16th, one year is the 8th, and that's the 14th, okay? It is 2 days, it's a Friday, it's 2 days before the Super Bowl. I would put all of your eggs in the Valentine's basket. The Super Bowl can be a weekend contest or a weekend event. Valentine's Day is Fort Knox for sales. There are so many comedic elements that you can play with. Flowers, weddings, people who forget, diamonds, candy, dates. There's so many things you can do. KSFM in Sacramento actually did Love Week, where they decided, as opposed to just doing, we're going to talk about one thing, every day for that week leading up to Valentine's on the morning show, they had a different topic and they mixed it up. It was, a feel-good thing. They found the couple in the market who had been married the longest, and they did, love advice. But then they followed it up with Bawdy, which was they did love for sale when they talked to a prostitute. How they found her, I don't know. But Love Week was a great way to bundle everything and kind of encapsulate it. Pretty much every client can be tied into Valentine's Day. It's kind of like Kids Fest. Home Depot, you could do a promotion called I've been meaning to get to that. It's a common experience with couples where, for example, say, be stereotypical, the male part of the couple has a bunch of projects that he's been meaning to get to. Well, we hook them up with Home Depot or a similar client for skills, training, equipment, assistance. Bowling. A bowling alley, what could you do for Valentine's Day? You could do Love Strikes Out and award a divorce. And by the way, for the stations that have done divorces, it is a great promotion and it's something that you can get for free. You get it from an attorney. And for a couple that is going through the split up to save $1,000 or whatever it is, that's a good prize. Bling. This is the time of year where diamonds are like a tsunami. It happens every year. We get lots of diamonds to give away. It just happens. It's one of those trends that we see. Great. Plan for it. If you get a diamond, what are you going to do with it? As exciting as entering your email, perhaps there's a bit more. One of the northern tier stations did Desperate Ice Wives. And it was women in wedding dresses on a frozen lake ice fishing. The first woman to catch a fish won a ring. That was done in Boise at Wow Country as Desperate Ice Wives, but this time it was women in wedding dresses on an ice rink, a hockey rink, shooting the puck the full length of the ice. With one of the Canadian stations, they did it as Runaway Bride, and they did it a jeweler in their market. And women in wedding dresses or bridesmaid dresses showed up. They were given a list of things that they needed to collect in terms of mobile phone photos, and they blew a whistle. No, that was my whistle. And they dashed. They were off, and they ran around the market collecting all of these items on a photo of a police officer eating ice cream, things like that. The first to return with all of the items got a diamond. TV loves that stuff. TV loves stupid stuff like people in wedding dresses doing unexpected things. KSON in San Diego did Make the Reception, Win a Reception. And they had 10 women, 10 of their listeners, go out to a football field and run passing routes. And they had the backup quarterback for the San Diego Chargers. I don't even think he was backup. I think he was back up to the backup, thus his availability. Threw balls at these women who were running routes. That sounded better in my head. But anyway, and he didn't just loft the ball. He zipped it like he was throwing into heavy coverage. The first woman to catch a ball won. It was, again, it was the ring, but it was more than that. It was a DJ for their wedding. Events, as opposed to warm and fuzzy, maybe it's time to stick in a FBD or screw Valentine's Day. If everybody is doing something, sometimes you need to do the opposite. That's promotions. That's how you stand out, is not by doing what everybody else is doing. Philadelphia, they do the bitter ball. KZIA in Cedar Rapids, they do just basically Galentine's. And it's Claire from the morning show going out with a bunch of her female listeners who have no interest in Valentine's for whatever reason. Hot 104.5 in Knoxville did a version of that. They did a bitter ball, but Joey got a car hood from a auto junkyard, spray painted it with the station colors, and you came and using a rock, you could scratch your name into it or the name of your ex. Again, if everybody's going to do something, do the opposite. If you choose to do something warm and fuzzy, weddings. Weddings are a great way to bring in lots of clients. But if you're going to do a wedding, it needs to have a hook, okay? And wacky radio weddings do get TV coverage, and we know the visceral, vicarious thrill we have of getting on TV. We just don't think like TV people. So Married in a Week has been done with some of the stations where they pick a couple on Monday and they marry them on Friday morning. Over the course of the week, we see everything come together, all the elements come together. I've seen that done with a couple of the CBS stations. They did it at a Waffle House, and you'll see that every year on like the news feed, where you'll have couples that will do odd or peculiar weddings, like at a McDonald's or at a Pizza Hut or at White Castle. Doing a wedding at a Waffle House will get you TV coverage. In San Francisco, we did the 24-hour wedding. This is for people who just couldn't make the commitment. We married them at 7 a.m. on the morning show, and we brought them back in the next morning at 7 a.m. and divorced them on the morning show. Everybody, each of the persons or people got 107 toasters with the receipts. BRMB in Birmingham, England, did a naked wedding. And it was nude, and I felt, as a Mennonite youth pastor, that I should go over and actually see this in person. They were in fact nude, but strategically. Okay, it wasn't anything much worse than what you would see at on TBS at 1 a.m. And I cannot tell you possibly how disappointed I was. The package for this couple was close to $70,000 worth of services and products and resources from various clients. They arrived in his and her matching Rolls-Royce Phantoms. I was sitting at the back of this little church where this was going on, and it was webcammed. And I could kind of look over my shoulder, and you could see as people started to log on. And at 1 p.m. when the wedding commenced, literally Europe was watching. I mean, it was like nothing I've ever seen before, which proves some people's theory that semi-nudity on the internet will work. Going back to other kinds of weddings, if you have a water park, great. Doing a wedding on a water slide is good. I've seen drive-through weddings. If you choose not to go back to the wedding thing, go back to fitness. Find a couple and get them back into the shape that they were in when they first met in 1989, as an example. Fashion. Jerry Springer has done or did all of our research for us. Jerry Springer had 5 basic themes that he had in heavy rotation. And one of them was, my mom dresses too damn sexy. I saw this in person at DFW, where it was a woman and her 2 kids, and you couldn't not look at her. Again, as a Mennonite youth pastor, I felt like I needed to watch her because it was kind of a teachable moment that I could pass on to the kids I work with. Her children didn't even want to stand next to her. So maybe what we do for Valentine's is we do a version of that, or in reverse, we take a guy and upgrade his clothing and get him back. Men tend to, after a period of time, stop caring about how we dress. Grocery stores. What could you do at the grocery store for Valentine's? Well, cooking is a hobby that you can share. Good. We give couples cooking lessons. Get out of the doghouse. This was done at Fred FM up in Canada, and they did get out of the doghouse cards. This is for men who had screwed up previous Valentine's days. It was dinner and other kind of prizes, but it was playing off the fact that they had, in fact, messed it up in the past. Kissograms. If you don't have a Kiss FM in your market, or if you are a Kiss FM, this is one of my favorite Valentine's promotions. Basically, you have people alert the radio station to where their spouse, their girlfriend, their boyfriend, whatever, fiance, where they're working on Valentine's Day and what hours they're going to be there. We got a male model and a female model, and we went into their workplaces and embarrassed them in front of all their coworkers. We have a kissogram for Ed. This is from Mindy. Mindy says that you're a hunka man love, and you can't get enough booty. I can't say the rest of this. This is embarrassing. Then you get a kiss on the cheek, and you get a gift basket or other client swag. Kissograms are absolutely amazing, and they look great on social media, and it's really just an excuse to be out in the workplaces. Bridesmaids dresses. If you wanted to do a bracket at Valentine's Day, do a bridesmaid's dress gallery or bracket. They are comedic elements. There used to be a website called uglydress.com, where people could share these monstrosities that they felt obligated to wear. Cool, bracketed. Mile of Men, done by Ben FM in Philadelphia. Eligible men, dateable men standing along a road with numbers, and you drove by and you voted on them, and you got dates with them. Mile of Men. And then finally, the single parent dating game. This was done at KGDI in Riverside. And basically it was listeners helping connect their single parents with other single parents. And the morning show took these 10 couples out for a night. The single parent event, it was absolutely amazing, which then brings us to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl stopped being about football in about 1980. What can you do with the Super Bowl? What can't you? It's all about food and halftime, okay? Food deliveries, we talked about that with New Year's Eve. Doing food deliveries is outstanding. Every year there seems to be some client that will come to the table with a lot of stuff. A few years ago, it was Red Lobster. So going out and hitting the Super Bowl parties, a great way of not just getting locked into the studio. And by the way, this is one of the biggest social media days of the year. Lose the stupid auto posts. Nobody cares. It's about food, it's about football, it's about the halftime. And regarding to food, great. Get a wing client or similar client in the market to do a Zoomed class or a Facebook Live class on how to make the best wings in the market in case you can't come over to our place and get them. You could do a bracket of wings or mom and pop pizzas. Des Moines did a thing. iHeart in Des Moines did mom and pop pizza or mom and pop ice cream parlors as a bracket. Doing not national chains, but you could, but doing a bracket of the best in the market. Random voters get gift cards. Perhaps the winning mom and pop pizza place gets a small schedule. These are worthy people. These are great people, and they're usually the food's better than the national chains. Appetizers, perfect. We all push our apps, as we should. We should push our apps. Great. We need to incentivize it. Great. Of everybody who downloads the app this week, you get $5 or a gift card for appetizers for the big game. The office pool, done by KLUC in Las Vegas, sponsored by one of those restaurants that caters to the at-work crowd. They did an office pool, the office that had picked the correct score, closest to the correct score, one food for everybody. This isn't rocket science, it's radio. Going back to the auto posts in the Super Bowl, one of the things you want to keep an eye on is if you do get corporate auto posts that they would like you to do, screen them for local relevance. During 102 Jams' Death Spiral in Orlando, they had a Super Bowl Sunday auto post about the 10 best places to watch the Super Bowl in Philadelphia. Events for the Super Bowl. This was the Super Bowl as done by Mix in Cincinnati. At a shopping mall, people kicking shoes at Targets to win shoes. It is stereotypical to say that women don't like football. It's kind of sexist, but I have seen stations that have done football widows promotions or events or parties for women who in theory have no interest in watching the Super Bowl. It was done by the Betty Bowl, or as the Betty Bowl at KSFM in Sacramento. Super Bowling, done by one of the stations in Portland. It was just basically a family day. Go out and go bowling if you, again, are not interested in watching the game. But to be honest, everybody's interested in watching the game. And then we get to February 15th to March 1st. It's not a hole, it's more like a dimple, but you do need to have something that you can stick there. Concert tickets are great. QYK in Tampa did a PS5 last year. They had a couple of PS5s to give away that during that period of time. But you're coming out of Valentine's, you're coming out of the Super Bowl, you do need to have something. If you have concert tickets, start hoarding them. Those are great hole fillers. February 21st is Fat Tuesday. It's Mardi Gras. Could you do something with it? Absolutely. If you're going to do a Mardi Gras party, at least have a theme to it. One of the stations did Wring Our Listener's Neck and basically threw beads at an intern. And if you got it over his head, like ring toss at a carnival, you won a prize. I saw one of the stations, and this was absolutely disgusting. They did oyster eating at a Mardi Gras party. I've seen it done as Party Gras. It's just an excuse to have something to talk about and fill the hole, which follows that, of course, with St. Patrick's Day. We're nearing the end. We've almost made it to April 1st. St. Patrick's Day, we get caught into the rut of we're doing a party and it's going to have green beer. Well, that's fantastic. But perhaps, possibly, there could be, as they say in The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, perhaps St. Patrick's Day is just a little bit more. There are parades in your markets. That's fantastic. There's a parade, be a part of it. Now, the best version of that I saw done was done by Clear Channel in Albany or in Poughkeepsie, where they had a Cinco de Mayo float in the St. Patrick's Day parade. And they had mariachis, and they strolled the parade route, and somehow they had Chris Marino had come up with something like 1,000 jars of salsa from a client, and they walked around along the parade route, handing out the salsa and apologizing for screwing up the dates. Again, we are in the circus clown medium, so why do what everybody else is doing? A beer bracket. Boom, there you go. Here's how you acknowledge St. Patrick's Day. We do a bracket of the best craft beer houses in the market. One of the stations did the Lucky Lady Lunch Hour, which was a party for women with male strippers. Kissing marathons, since the dawn of time, have been historically successful for radio. Then we get a bunch of rocks, perhaps we do it at Jewelers, and we have people kiss the Blarney Stone, a kissing marathon. Now, our comedic elements for St. Patrick's Day begin and end with leprechauns. This was the engineer at KLUC in Las Vegas. Leprechaun is our other final comedic element. They taught him how to mix. Thus, their hook was Las Vegas's first mixing leprechaun. How do you stand out? Everyone's going to be doing something. You need to do something different. And Wild in Tampa, they presented it as there had just been some kind of new gambling initiative in the state of Florida. Something had been canceled or outlawed. So they got on the air and said that they had hired the best attorney with a kiosk at the mall. And the attorney had discovered that there was a loophole. Leprechaun tossing had been left out. So until they closed that loophole, we can still do leprechaun tossing. So their event was basically a bar with the green beer and the music and the corned beef. But the event was taking a street teamer named Beeve, who was about 4'10", and very large men, throwing him into gym mats. Leprechaun tossing. St. Pampy's Day. This was done at Now in Indianapolis. Again, this was the ticket. This is how you got into their event, was you won these logo panties. There's not a lot of universals, but one of the universals is diaper crawls. And when it comes to TV coverage, there is something that TV loves about little kids crawling across a shopping mall floor as their parents scream at them. It was done as bunny races at KJ in Oklahoma City, or in Tulsa, I apologize, or maybe it was Oklahoma City, but it was little kids with bunny ears crawling across the shopping mall floor. It was done as bunny races at KGGI in Riverside, again at a shopping mall. That was the sponsor. It was $1,000 for the parents to go to the shopping mall. And the client also put $1,000 into a scholarship for the kids' college fund. It got TV coverage. It always does. I remember K-Hits, one of the stations, where the promotions director called me and she, an hour before it started, and said, "We've got 2 TV crews already here." And I said, they love this stuff. Play to that. Okay, so you got a casino, and we almost all have casinos as clients, and they're good money, and they're good partners for radio. So we have to continually come up with new stuff for them. With one of the stations, they granted people Irish citizenship at the casino, and were given, you had to get in, you had to sing a song by either the U2 or the Cranberries, and then you were granted, the luck of the Irish, and the theory being that you would, perhaps do a little bit better than everybody else. But I thought granting people Irish citizenship was kind of funny. I'm wired that way. Do you have a hockey team in the market? Minor league, college, it doesn't matter. St. Hat Tricks Day. Taco Bell is a client that loves promotions where everybody in the market wins something if something occurs. They've always been very, very amenable and open to these kind of things. They had a situation here in the Twin Cities where if the morning show guy hit a free throw, everybody in the market got a free taco. If he missed the free throw, you could still come in between noon and the dial position, 101, and get a free soft drink. And people would do it. And they did do it. And he unfortunately dinged it and nobody got a taco. Taco Bell would be into it. The theory being, if on a game, if there was a game on the 17th or the day before, if the team gets a hat trick, everybody in the market gets something. St. Patrick's Day. I look at this and I ask, why does not Jane Modine get better rules or better roles? We're almost to April 1st right now. Spring break. This is largely ignored by a lot of radio stations, but because they don't have, you know, a teen audience, so to speak. Well, parents experience spring break also. One of the stations did spring fake. How you would sell this, I'm not entirely sure, but what they did was, for the kids and the families who couldn't afford to get out of town, they helped stage their social media so it looked like they'd gone to Daytona Beach. Spring Broke is the promotion that has been done where you, for the people who are, again, stuck in the market, you offer them lots of discounted opportunities, whether it's food or bar nights or movies or any kind of entertainment. Spring Broke. It could also be a gallery contest. What do people do? They post photos from their spring break. Sadly, I did not go to spring break. I would sit this one out. But having, you know, this is all about social media, which is retro fashion, retro hair, retro photos. So it could in fact be a gallery promotion. One of the stations had a DJ who had never gone to spring break. So she presented it as, whoa, this is, you know, I've had so many successful, you know, opportunities and stuff, but the one thing that has always haunted me was that I never got to go to spring break. So she rode along, and it was sponsored by a beer that gave them gas money, which is kind of weird, drinking and driving, but they pulled it off. And she rode along and covered the whole thing with her new best friends, these college students who allowed her to ride along. And then also Spring Stuck. Spring Stuck, again, taking that week or 2 weeks, and then every market's different, but taking that week or 2 weeks and loading it up with things for families to do. This was done by KSFM in Sacramento as Mama's Little Helper, which was resources and things for women in June who suddenly, you know, the kids are out of school. They now have to keep them busy, I guess is the term, and engaged, and give them stuff that they can keep, you know, or they can do all summer long. Spring Stuck would be that. It's again, such and such nature center is doing these lessons. Here's a movie theater that's doing 99-cent things. Here's something that's going on. Here's something that's going on. Sponsored it. It would be a fantastic resource. And this is it. Thank you. Thank you for sitting through this. I hope that I didn't go too fast. If you have any questions about any of these things, sometimes I can be scattered. I again have the attention span of a short attention span golden retriever. So if you have any questions about any of these things, the goal would be that you could take a few of these things and turn them around. We are a 24/7 purveyor of content. Content is more than music. It's promotions is what's between the songs, and that's what differentiates us from Sirius and iPods. And remember, 4% of people play radio contests. That's not great, okay? So when you're tasked with giving stuff away, what can you do to maybe bump it up to 5? Can you imagine if you did a promotion that 5% of your listeners participated in? It would be historic. Then you work the problem backwards. What would we need to do to give away these Lizzo tickets, as an example? What would we need to do with these Lizzo tickets that would get just 1% more of people participating? One thing you want to do is don't play to the 4%. Play to the 96%. Play to the people who are sitting in their damn cars waiting to hear their favorite songs. That's why Secret Sound has always worked. It sucks people in. So that's your goal. You know, if you wanted to have a goal, if you wanted to have something that you could stick in front of your face Write 5%. That's your goal. Your goal is 5%. I want to thank you. I have a podcast called 3 Radio Promotions in 3 Minutes. So if you have a chance to check that out, it's where you would find most podcasts. CPR-promotions.com has all of my books, all being 2, but I've written 2 books on promotions. One called The Encyclopedia of Radio Promotions, literally 5,000 sellable promotions, and the Street Hacker's Guide to the Universe. And if you have any questions about my service and how to get my service, certainly hit me by email, pagenienaber@gmail.com. It is spelled like it sounds. I will send all of you the recap of this in probably the next 72 hours. Thank you.